This happened around the time when part of me had begun to think maybe it would be all right if everything simply ended here. On the way back from praying at a small Shinto shrine tucked into the hills, I left something important behind. From the Yurei files. Back then, I had stalled on the path ahead. I was taking a year to study and try again. My friends had left for new towns. Some had student IDs around their necks. Some had employee badges. Everyone was moving into another life, and I was the only one still in my hometown. I sat at my desk at night, trying to earn one more chance. No one blamed me for it, but every day, the feeling of falling a little farther behind kept piling up deep in my chest. Late that summer, I needed a change of scenery. So I drove to my grandfather's house in the northern part of the prefecture. His house stood at the very edge of a village, surrounded by old fields and rice paddies. The closer I got, the narrower the roads became. The lights in the houses grew fewer and farther apart. As evening deepened, that place seemed to slip back into an older time. I thought my grandfather would be glad if I showed my face after so long. At first, that was all it was, just a small excuse to get away. My grandfather greeted me with the same smile I remembered. We drank tea and talked about how things had been. Outside, the light was thinning into indigo. That was when I remembered the shrine he had taken me to a few times when I was a child. In the middle of the wide rice fields, one small hill rose by itself. Up its slope ran a long flight of stone steps. Since I had come all this way, I thought I might stop by and pray about my exams. When I said that, my grandfather went quiet for a moment. Then he told me the way to the shrine. The stone steps felt much longer than I remembered. The trees on both sides loomed dark and still, though there was no wind at all. When I looked back, only the water in the paddies below dully reflected the sky. At the top stood an old shrine hall, weathered almost beyond recognition. It was quiet. There was no sign of anyone. Even the insects sounded far away. I stood before the offering box and put my hands together. Please let me move forward this year. That was all I asked. Then it happened. It felt as if a thin film had been quietly peeled away. From somewhere inside my back, there was no pain, only a strange lightness, as if my own outline had thinned. It was a wrongness that felt disturbingly real. When I lifted my head, Nothing around me had changed. But I knew I could not stay there. Something deep inside my body understood it before I did. I ran down the stone steps, almost fleeing. On the way, I dropped one earbud, but I could not make myself go back for it. All the way down, I felt as if I was being watched. From the shrine hall, as if someone were silently watching me leave. That was what it felt like. Even after I got back to the house, I sat in the car for a while and could not get out. The air conditioner was running, but I was sweating so much, my shirt stuck to my skin. Then, when I stood under the porch light, I noticed the black shape that should have been lying at my feet was not there. I went back home and told no one about it, because once I said it out loud, it felt like it would become real. About a week passed. No one in my family noticed. I remember that night being strangely cool. It was a little after 1 in the morning. I had turned off the light and was just starting to fall asleep. Then our dog began to growl, low, deep in its throat. It was not the kind of dog that barked at every little sound. But that night, as if it had found something, it forced out a wet, strained growl from the back of its throat. At the same time, I was seized by an urge I could not explain. I had to go outside. That thought rose up before I could stop myself. When I opened the front door, one street lamp was burning at the far end of the road outside the house. Under it, someone was standing. It was far away, but the second I saw it, I knew that was me. It was black from head to toe, so black I could not make out its face or its clothes. It was a flat darkness that seemed to swallow the moonlight and the street lamp, and yet its outline was exactly mine. I was here, and another me was over there. My mind could not understand any of it, but my body was already terrified. My knees gave out. I collapsed where I stood. I could not move a single finger. The black figure began to walk toward me, slowly. There were no footsteps, and still the space between us kept shrinking. Something around its mouth moved faintly. It seemed to be repeating something, the same words, over and over. I could not catch all of them. The only thing that lodged in my ears was a wet voice, saying something close to, "It's okay. I can take over now." That was the first time I knew I wanted to live. It is pathetic to admit. Until then, there had been many nights when I wanted to throw everything away. But lying there on the ground, I knew it with every part of me. I did not want it to end, not yet. My black shadow stopped right in front of me. For a long moment, it looked down. Then it sank into the darkness at my feet, quietly came apart, and slipped back beneath me. A few days later, I went to my grandfather's house again. Keeping silent felt more dangerous, so I told him everything from the beginning. My grandfather was not surprised. He only stayed quiet for a long time. Then he said, "The shrine's God sees what has pooled inside a person when grief or resentment has grown deep and muddy. Once in a great while, it draws that person's shadow out, a shadow pulled free from its owner, tries to help, they say. It tries to take the owner's place. And if the two trade places, the person is cut free from suffering. That may be what it is." My grandfather said, "It is not good. It is not evil. In its own way, maybe it thinks it is saving them." But he also told me there are times when you must not go near it, when your spirit is at its lowest, and when you deeply resent someone. At first, nothing came to mind. I did not think I had anyone like that. But on the drive home, I finally understood. It was not one person I resented. Maybe it was all of my classmates who had moved on ahead of me. Every time I saw their smiling faces, I felt like I was the only one who had been left behind. Even if I never said it out loud, something like dark mud had settled at the bottom of my heart. Did my shadow come back that night because I wanted to remain myself? Or did whatever was on the other side simply decide that it was still too soon to take my place? I still do not know. But whenever I remember the stone steps of that shrine, I look down at my feet to make sure my shadow is still with me today. I always check